Karl Lieberman, Global Chief Creative Officer of Wieden+Kennedy, actress and comedian Ego Nwodim, Jeff Staple, founder of Reed Art Department and Staple, and Fast Company Global Design Editor Mark Wilson.
Good afternoon, everyone. What an embarrassment of riches we have on the stage, and only 30 minutes to talk to everyone. We have Karl Lieberman, the man who created the most interesting man in the world, so pretty interesting. We have Jeff Staple, who created the very idea of the sneaker collab. And of course, we have Ego Nwodim, who...
Nwodim.
Of course. Who just wrapped their 7th season of SNL, and I think, as everyone knows, stepped off, and yeah.
Thank you.
Look, you don't get to say bye at SNL, right? You say it between seasons, and no one gets to applaud you and the amazing work you did. So no. You gotta do it. You gotta do it. So, we're going to talk a lot about sort of how culture shows up through, all of the different mediums they work in. But everybody is curious. I think Ego, talk to me, I guess, just for one moment about, I think, why was now the right time to move on? But then, really, what are you doing next? What's going on?
Well, there's so much I want to do, and SNL was always meant to be a stepping stone. There's so many ideas I need to have time to create, and I'm looking forward to doing that. So directing, more writing in a different capacity. Very excited. It's an exciting thing.
I love it. So we want to talk a little bit about the genesis of some of the different ideas that each of these creatives has brought to light. We're going to start there, and then we're going to kind of work through process and sort of other things along those lines. And I do want to start with the most interesting man in the world. And I'm curious where that idea was sort of born from. How did you come up with it?
I came up with it at the last second. and
as all great ideas are.
Yeah, because we thought, the brief was that young men are really insecure about their beer choices, and that exotic beer would make them seem more interesting. That was the brief from the client, which I thought was kind of absurd, because I didn't think a beer could make you more interesting, and I was having trouble coming up with ideas off of that. And at the end,
I think, unfortunately, a lot of people think a beer can make them more interesting.
Well, yes, after a few, yeah, you feel very interesting. So we were like, well, what if we just leaned all the way into this thing, and we're just like, maybe this stuff does make you interesting, and maybe the person who drinks a ton of Dos Equis, if they drink a lot of it, then thus they are the most interesting person in the world. And it doesn't sound that impressive. That's how you came up with it in 60 seconds, but that was the notion.
That was it. And why did you feel like that would work, even though you just came up with that really fast?
Oh, well, we just started writing. What got that thing interesting was when what we were writing about was things that we were embarrassed about ourselves about, things that we found uninteresting in ourselves. So one of my favorite lines that we wrote early on was he never gets the salad dressing on the side. He gets it on top of the salad, where it belongs, where there's no turning back. So we were like, that's funny, because I always get really embarrassed when I order salad dressing on the side. It feels really fussy, and he never does that.
Yeah, so it's almost like the confidence you wish you had to do the most mundane things possible across your life.
Yeah, and the writing process was easy, because we just thought about stuff we didn't like about ourselves, which I can think of for days, and then just had him do the opposite.
Ego, you brought a lot of great characters to SNL, and I think we could talk about the origin of a lot of them, but most recently I feel like Miss Eggy kind of stole the show. I don't want to get us an FTC violation or anything like that, but I'm curious.
This isn't live.
This isn't live, so yeah, you can.
It's live, but it's not that kind of live, right?
Exactly.
So I can cuss.
You can cuss, and the audience can cuss. But yeah, where is characters like that born from?
The thing that I found in my time at the show, and just as a creative myself, is that the things that seem to work the best are the things that you genuinely find funny yourself. And early on in my career, I think there was a time where I tried to separate what I actually thought was funny, which seems really counterintuitive, but you're like, this is my job and this is me performing, and then this is me on the phone with my friends or at lunch with my friends. And I had to sort of bridge that gap and realize like, oh, I think people want to hear from and see the version that is me on the phone with my friends and me at lunch with my friends. And so Miss Eggy is, I would say, how I talk to my friend Ashley on the phone, honestly. We do voices. It's a strange thing, two grown women will cut in and out of voices. I was observing us last week and I go, oh yeah, we're weird. And so Miss Eggy is sort of born of that, but you know, that specific character, the news came out that the White House Correspondents Association wouldn't be having a comedian that year. And then I thought, okay, well, what would my audition for it look like if I thought, oh, I think you should have me. And it wasn't really gonna be me, but it was this process that ultimately was incredibly fun, where I said to my friend Carl Tart, who's one of the writers at SNL and who I came up in the comedy scene in Los Angeles with. He just started working at SNL last year. And I said to him, I was like, I want to do something with this news, and I want to do something that's like my audition for this gig that kind of doesn't exist now. And it was his idea to go like, well, what if you made fun of the food? Because we have the White House, the correspondents are kind of roasted, and then what about the dinner? Because the dinner is the last part of the name of
It's kind of similar to like The Most Interesting Man, that like the dinner would be the most mundane part of the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Yes, the White House Correspondents' Dinner. It's like no one's made fun of the dinner. And so we got to write really bad jokes about food. And somehow when you put a character on it and then I start doing the thing I do with my friend Ashley on the phone, I'm like, oh, it's fun and it's silly. But in that process, we were really making each other, it went from me being worried that we didn't have anything to us all making each other laugh in a room at midnight. And I think that's sort of the magic of Miss Eggy.
I mean, I think it's interesting because, you know, seeing your characters, it does feel like, especially with Miss Eggy, it's, as you said, like not quite you, or kind of you, but not quite stage you, you know, personal you. And how long did it take you to sort of like embrace blurring that boundary? And why did you, I guess, how did you find that worked? Was right for you?
I mean, I would say mostly any of my assessment about Miss Eggy really happened after the fact, because I had to think about like what worked about this versus anything that I've sort of done before. I think hearing me switch out of voices, which we maybe almost lost in the second installment, but I was like, I think it's actually really important for people to hear. It's like me putting on this persona of a 50-year-old woman who says sex is a little different after 50. I'm not 50, and I wouldn't know.
It's speculation.
So I've heard. I'll report back later. But I'm like, I think when I look back and I assess what worked is like the switching out of voices. And then there's something for me because I perform comedy and I've done stand-up shows at colleges and I've met some of my comedy heroes, and I had this realization that so many performers, which I shouldn't tell this secret, but it's the truth, is that that's a persona. When I meet, and I won't say names, but I'm like, I meet this person in real life who is like exuberant and like outgoing, extroverted comedian on stage. You meet them and they're so soft-spoken and they're so shy, and that resonates with me. And so I think about going on stage as a stand-up when I've gone to colleges, and I'm like, okay, well, put on the persona. And I like to be on stage as me still somehow, which is less interesting, which is what you're seeing now, okay? It's the truth. So I realized like putting on the persona, and I'm like, Ego doesn't want to do that, but Ego was saying, I want to introduce you to my persona is the thing that I could get behind for myself. And so that's what I think worked about that. But it's something I didn't realize until after the fact, and it's something I've considered for some time, that it's a persona oftentimes on stage.
Right. It's basically like almost like a metaphor for life to some extent, like going on stage versus not. Jeff, so the Nike SB Dunk Low Staple Pigeon, it's a long name.
Pigeon Dunk for short.
Pigeon Dunk for short is still, I believe, probably the most collectible, amongst the most collectible sneakers out there. It's also was a groundbreaking collaboration, and really the first sneaker collaboration we saw, where when Jeff released it, there was sort of a rush on the store. It was front page news, I believe, in the New York Post. This was a shoe collaboration. I mean, now we see them, like a dozen a day.
Yep.
And I'd love to know how that collaboration came about. Like, where was it born from? And obviously, like, it was Nike.
Yeah. I was really lucky. I had a brand called Staple, which I still have today. It really resonated in New York City. And so Nike wanted to have a shoe designed dedicated to New York City, and they called me to do it. And I came up with this idea of like doing a shoe that actually looks like a pigeon. If anybody here lives in New York, you'll understand that a pigeon is almost like, to me, the spirit animal of every New Yorker, right? Like, basically because they don't give a shit. They will stand in front of you. They can fly, but like you have to walk around them. Have you ever seen like a pigeon take the stairs? It's like, they're like, you can fly. Why are you taking the stairs?
It'd be like Superman sitting there in like the middle of the street, like, what's up? You just walk by.
I love it. It really personifies New Yorkers to me. So when I presented that idea back to Nike, they were like, wait, we were thinking like Statue of Liberty or Empire State Building. I was like, I've never been to the Statue of Liberty, and I've been in New York for like 30 years, So I wanted to create a shoe that only New Yorkers would get. And I actually told Nike, which is based in Beaverton, Oregon, if you know, I said, if I created a shoe that you understood as a New York shoe, I failed as a designer. Because why would you, old white dude in Oregon, want to understand this New York shoe, So I trusted my gut, we released it, and then as you said, it really became like this monumental, mythological shoe that still, I think today, like, I think Christie's just sold a pair for like $135,000, like one pair.
If you pull up StockX right now, it's like 120
100
or
plus,
something.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I love what you said about personas, because even for me as a designer, there's what Jeff would wear and want to make, and then there's what my fan base wants to wear and want, and I have to sort of separate that sometimes. If I just said, I'm only going to make things that I would wear, I would be broke. Like I have to make, and I think like it goes for like Ralph Lauren too, like what Polo makes is not necessarily what Ralph would wear 24/7. And so I always think about this duality of like, okay, what does Jeff want, but really, what does the kid walking into the store want to wear? And I have to make a separation on those two things like you did.
Yeah.
About what percentage of stuff that you make will you wear? I mean, you're stapled out right now.
I have a very mathematical rule now, and it's been
really?
honed for the last 28 years of my brand. It is now sadly 80-20. So when I look at my whole collection, if I can rock 20% of the collection, I'm very happy. If you think about it the other way, if I rocked 80% of the collection and 20% was for other people, I would make very little money, right? Because not everyone wants to dress like Jeff. So now it's the 80-20 rule the other way. I'm happy if I can, personally, I would pay retail for 20% of the collection, because then that means 80% will be bought by other people, which is a good business model.
I mean,
80-20.
was that different when you were younger? Did you design more clothing for yourself?
Oh yeah, in the first 10 years, it was everything had to be able to be worn by me. Yeah, and that's just stupid. Like, just think about the math. Like, if you have 10 people in a room, and I want all 10 people to wear Staple, 2 people might wear V-necks, 2 people might wear pink, 2 people might wear like, bell bottoms. And I have to, if I want all 10 customers, I have to make something for all of them. If I said, no, I'm only gonna make what I'm gonna wear, and 8 people are like, well, I'm not gonna wear what you're gonna wear, then I don't really have a business, I have a hobby. And that's where the shift really happened between, for me as a brand owner.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think in creating comedy, what happens sometimes with people try to service the audience in that way, where they go, this is what I think they think is funny. And I had a friend who was like helping coach me in stand-up years ago, and I was like, okay, well, this audience will probably want to hear that. And he goes, you can't think of it that way.
Yeah.
You need to tell jokes that you want to tell them that
Yeah.
you think are funny. Bear in mind the audience, sometimes I can't cuss because they're younger.
Yeah.
But it's such a different thing in that, and to be
But then I
creative
bet
in that realm. Yeah.
there's the stand-up audience, and then there's the SNL audience.
Yeah.
There's like,
That is true.
yeah,
Yes.
so you even have to shift it when you're being public facing,
Yes.
which is like, I think the equivalent for me is like my Japanese audience, my French audience, and my New York audience all want different things.
Yeah.
Like for instance, in China, they'll never buy anything that's garment washed or acid washed. Everything has to feel slick and brand new.
Yeah.
And everything here, as you know with J. Crew, everything feels like it's been washed a million times. They won't accept that. So now I have to like create 2 separate lines. So it's almost like you have to
Yeah.
tell 2 different types of jokes to different audiences.
I will say too that anytime a new comedian comes to Saturday Night Live, for example, it's part of their job to figure out how to match their brand of comedy, their comedic voice, and marry it to that of the show.
The SNL brand,
SNL is an institution, right? So it's been around. The audience they have is evolving with time, but by and large, that show itself has its own voice. And so your job as a comedian who comes on to the SNL is to go, how can I figure out how to do what I want to do for this particular audience?
How long does that adjustment period take? Like, how long did you feel like it took for you?
I think it takes, it takes everyone a different amount of time. I would say I don't know that there's a time when you go, I finally nailed it, right? I think there's like weeks where you go, I really married my voice to the show's voice. But I think it's week by week. And if we were getting paid by the week, excuse me, by sketch, by sketch, I think a lot of people there would also be broke. So,
I mean, that's basically the YouTube economy, right? Like getting paid by sketch.
But you also have to remember that SNL is a force of itself that's changing too. So it's kind of like surfing in a way, where it's like you're trying to get your sea legs when you're on the show, but SNL is also adapting on a week-to-week, month-to-month basis. So you can't just be like, I'm going to go this way for SNL, and then SNL's evolving. You have to match it.
Right.
And so like for us too, it's similar. If I said, okay, fine, all of Asia's clothes will be not washed, and I just go headstrong into that, by the time I deliver it, they'll be like, oh no, we changed our mind. We want things washed now. It's like, what? So I have to be aware of what's happening in the world,
I think I think I'm hearing you say like being adaptable and understanding the marketplace and not becoming rigid in anything you do. And I think that's the key to most creativity.
Each of you uses satire in different ways across your pieces. And I'm really curious how you view the role of it within your own work.
Is that for me?
For each of you. But yeah, Karl, you start. I'd love.
I feel like you're going to crush satire. I actually don't really know what it means.
I mean,
You don't know what.
do you care to provide a
I would say
definition?
you don't believe you're using satire within advertisements for brands. I mean, you look at Most Interesting Man, and I think that's a satire of the human experience.
Okay,
I would say you could look at.
Yes.
Carl Weiden's good at this. Go ahead.
Okay, great. All right, I should know how to do this. We kind of have, it oftentimes does go into two modes. It's like when someone hires us, we want to do something that doesn't feel like advertising. And that's the first goal. And then oftentimes when they're like, right, but can you just make it more like advertising, we do tend to then satire advertising.
Oh, really? So you're saying like satire is almost a baseline for advertising that people expect?
Yeah, I mean it's like the SNL commercials. It's like they're not that different than regular commercials.
They're better.
That makes them so great. So yeah, that is I don't love doing that, but that I would say that is a default thing if we're in a jam and someone's like, no, I really want you to say like these pants make you more confident. We'll be like, okay, sure, and then we'll make fun of it.
Can you give me an example where you feel like you've worked in satire successfully? I mean, I didn't realize you were so reluctant. Like this to me is really surprising because, again, like I could look at many ads that have satire, but I guess perhaps that's too status quo for you as a creator.
No, it just doesn't feel that super interesting to make fun of advertising in advertising. I don't know. It feels.
Oh, you can make fun of anything within it. But yes.
I think I like stuff that has more like heart and more soul to it, and more like is trying to say something. Because I think that stands out because most advertising doesn't say much. Hey, all right.
Got the clap. You got a slow clap up front. All right. I mean, I think that's an interesting answer.
It sounds like the satire comes almost naturally to you. Not only did Karl not know the definition, but also achieve it so successfully with the most interesting man in the world. I think that's incredible. I mean, there's something natural. I think some of the best stuff comes from sort of your natural instincts in that way. Right. Yeah.
I mean, I would look at satire. I would see the Staple brand. You wear a Staple shirt, and I don't know if people realize what's on the back of many Staple objects. And I'll let you explain, Jeff.
I mean, our proof of authenticity is pigeon poop. So we actually apply pigeon poop to our clothes so that you know it's real, because the bootleggers will be like, this pigeon poop must not be part of the garment, so we won't put that on. So the kids know that if there's pigeon poop, it's real staple. And in fact, one of my proudest moments is that when I applied for the US Patent and Trademark Office, I have pigeon poop trademarked for clothing and apparel class 35. So I have a document from the USPTO that just has a splat of pigeon shit on it, and it's like, I just own pigeon shit. It's like my crowning achievement. But to answer your question, I think oftentimes in streetwear, the satire often takes the form of anti-establishment, right? Because we exist in this world of like Zara, H&M, and Uniqlo. So, and we know that like you can get these pants and this shirt at Uniqlo and Zara for like a quarter of the price. But so it's important that we inject either some messaging or some sort of coded language or oftentimes satire so that this t-shirt signifies that you're like, you're in the know, you're like down. I often have this analogy where like, you ever go to an airport or you're like on a flight and you see someone who's like rocking the right stuff and you get that head nod like, that's everything. Like you want that head nod of validation. It's like, oh shit, I'm wearing the right stuff today. That's what you want, yeah.
I have to know, Jeff, who's picking up the pigeon poop? That's all I'm thinking about.
It's a big crew. It's a big crew.
Yeah.
Actually, I picked my store in Soho because there's like a pigeon
Oh, we're just
roost
going out
above
there
it. Yeah.
scraping it up.
Yep.
Okay, I love it.
Ego, thoughts on satire within your work?
I think it goes without saying. You guys have all seen Saturday Night Live.
Exactly. Exactly.
Wait, I have
Yeah.
when I think we flip it for Ego, like when do you feel like you need to be serious? Because you're 24/7 satire, so when do you flip it?
I'm really serious in my personal life. Really not funny in my personal life, honestly. I think, I mean, there's sometimes, I would, to sort of answer that, is like there are some things that are just like, you can't really touch that right now. And if you are going to touch that, you want to touch it with sincerity, which I find refreshing. Just working with comedians, being one myself, being around them all day long. I am like, well, let me see you be serious for a second.
Wait, can I ask a follow-up?
Yeah.
When's the last time you or somebody wanted to make a joke about this subject matter, but you were like, too soon?
I mean, it happens regularly.
week?
The nice thing about, every single week, we're in there and being like, man, if only we could touch this thing in this way.
Okay.
And like, we can laugh about it internally. Or at SNL, we would write jokes that are like for table read, that it's like, okay, this table read audience, and we can laugh at it and it'll get
not ready for prime time.
cacophony of laughter.
Yeah.
It'll produce, but then we know we can't put that out in the world. Also, because I do think there's this thing with comedians where people are excited to, a little excited and eager to misunderstand and sort of, assign an intention that's not really there.
I feel like there's an assumption for the worst for comedy where there probably should be for the best.
At times, but it's such it's such a fine line, and it's unclear, and it's one of those things that's like not defined and should be sort of assessed case by case. But we have jokes, we have things we joke about, and then we go, we could never put that on the world because that would be misconstrued. But we are laughing at it here. Yeah.
I actually want to ask about a time that you feel like your work was just, the reaction from the audience was just wildly different than you anticipated.
When they screamed shit, I would say I didn't expect the audience. I actually really did not expect that. Do you believe me, Jeff?
No.
Does everybody know? Does everybody know that?
I really did not. We have a whole dress rehearsal,
Yeah.
with a real audience that did not scream shit. And the whole joke is supposed to be that I'm performing with such hubris and confidence that I think people know my silly little catchphrases. Yeah. Like, Miss Eggy don't what? You gotta think about, it's never been done before. Who is this woman?
Yeah, exactly.
Miss Eggy don't
I've never seen this woman before. She's up here giving a stand-up act.
Exactly. And the whole joke is like, she holds the mic out, no one says anything, and then she says, that's right. That's why she keeps saying, that's right. And so
it's actually it is a better punchline, actually.
Yeah, maybe, I think so. But it was also fun that they screamed shit. I genuinely was surprised. And if we thought they were going to, they would have nixed it straight away. One of my first sketches at SNL I wrote before I ever got there, and I got to perform it. I rewrote it once I got to SNL with Leslie Jones. My third week, Seth Meyers was the host. It's called Thirsty Cops, and there's something in that sketch about somebody eating the box, if I can say that here. And
you did.
yeah, well, I said it. I've said it.
good.
But we
We're
got
good.
a note, and I wish a few weeks ago I was wishing that I had kept this sheet of paper that said from Standards and Practices, who will get ahead of any concerns about us getting fined or violating the rules of the FCC. I got a sheet of paper in my third week of work that was like, we have to remove "Eat the Box" sketch. So they certainly would have gotten ahead of it if they thought the audience would say shit. And so then the second time we did it, when we queued that up, they were like, you can't do that. So promise you, if we had known, we wouldn't have been able to, but I'm glad we didn't know. It's fun, yeah.
I mean, it's great about live programming,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, by the way, I want to add that, like, I have a lot of creative friends, right? So whenever we gather together, whether it's like a group of like painters, DJs, chefs, artists, designers, we always hands down say the hardest, worst creative endeavor to take on is comedy, by far. Like, the most insane people would sign up for this because of just like, it's the hardest one.
You're calling a woman crazy on stage.
Yes. No, but do you agree that comedy is by far like the hardest art form to do?
I don't know if I feel comfortable saying that just because
I mean,
I do
like,
it.
painting's hard.
Yeah.
I mean,
The
comedy's
comedy's
hard.
next level.
I think it requires a level of insanity, yes.
Yes.
So I'm not offended. I do think you have to be a little unwell and to do comedy, and I think that there is something that is scary about it, but that scary thing thrills me. Like I came up doing improv and sketch, but like my first love, as nerdy as it is, to say in any community, and especially the comedy community, is improv. And but you go on stage and you have nothing but chairs, and you have no idea.
hype man, no DJ, nothing.
And so I find that absolutely thrilling. It's like my favorite thing to do. And then you think about a stand-up who's prepared their jokes, but they stand out there alone. And a stand-up will say they think improv's intimidating. Improvisers will say they think stand-up is intimidating. So I think there's an acknowledgement that comedy, there's an element to it that is kind of crazy. Crazy. But I don't feel comfortable saying it's the hardest thing because I do it, and then that would be patting myself on the back.
But Jeff said it.
Yeah,
So-
Jeff said it. But
Jeff said
I don't know, because also in what I do, I'm like, what I've had to do over time is bring more of myself to it and not treat it like a job. And for me, it's like, oh, I'm just getting to be myself, and that's really cool for work.
Yeah, you're natural,
But I think maybe it's the hardest thing to do ever if you're not good at it. And you're trying to get good at it. I imagine that's like remarkably challenging.
Well, you guys in the audience probably know the term KPI, right? Like key performance indicator, right? Like for me, it's like sell-through. It's like, your KPI, make me laugh.
Yeah.
And if I'm not laughing, like, you failed. That's
Yeah.
hard as
but
hell.
I love it. I recently did a show, and I had a set in my back pocket, and then I started to do it, and I go, I don't think this is the audience for that. And in the middle of it was like, I'm gonna change, because I'm like, but I loved that. I felt alive after, because I was
crazy.
like, got him.
Freestyle. Yeah,
But I had to, but I was like, I can stand up here and fail in front of all these people, which is great in that it'll, be a reminder to me of my resilience. Like, I'm not gonna die after, unless they stone me. But they won't do that. But but that's so exciting to me. But it is. There was this show that used to exist called 7 Minutes in Purgatory for comedians to do 7-minute sets, but they can't hear the audience at all. Sounds awful. Yeah, it's actually really.
That's like an audition where they'll turn off the lights in the theater and you're just up there and nobody says anything.
Yeah, but then I'm like, you need to, if you're doing comedy, you better hear a laugh or two. And so it's scary, but I love it. So I don't feel scared. And then I also feel very okay being myself on stage. I barely made you guys laugh, and I'm fine with that.
No, I actually think it's interesting because right now we're hearing a lot of people say no, don't bring your whole self to work. That's not okay. You should protect that. And but I feel like if you're doing any creative endeavor, but also why check yourself out, right? Why check yourself out from a lot of your life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have just about a minute left, but I would love to do kind of a rapid fire. You're working on something, you were passionate about it, for whatever reason it sucks. You want it to work. What's sort of a go-to trick or strategy that you try to sort of salvage it and to make it good?
I'll start. I find that when an idea gets stuck, I don't really get harped up on it. Like, I realize that the reservoir of creativity is sort of limitless. And so I can put something back in the hopper and kind of let it marinate, if you will. And years later, it might come out and it just might be like timing. It might be like something that's happening where it's like, it's ready later. So it's almost like baking bread in a sense. But if something's not ready, I know a lot of my creative friends are like, oh, I spent all this time on this and that, what a waste of time. No, just park it and you'll see it'll come back when it's ready, if it's meant to be. Or it'll combine with another idea and create something better.
You're not doing a weekly comedy show.
No.
I'm gonna say ditto.
Yeah.
Mainly because it's rapid fire and also because I fully agree. I was gonna say that I just walk away.
Did you walk away from like things at SNL and come back to them like months later or something, or no? Do you
Years,
like those ideas?
years later, years. There's been things that I've worked on that it's like, this doesn't work this week, it didn't work next week, we're gonna let it sit. And like strategically, internally there, it's good because if someone's heard your jokes recently, that's top of mind. But if you let them wait 3 years to hear it again, it could work again. And it could actually work. So yeah, lots of times you walk away. And also the way I'm creative is if I have to come up with jokes, I just live life. I'm like, I can't sit in a box and be like, you have to come up with a joke. It's not.
Just everyday human suffering gets the job done.
Basically, that's plenty enough. Yeah.
Carl?
I think for us, it's like so many of our ideas die. I mean, probably a creative, like 99.9% of your ideas are killed by somebody.
I feel like in your industry, the chopping blocks is like extra little.
So you have to get pretty fast. Like if you're sitting and struggling with something, you're like, if I can't even figure out how to make this good, like everybody's gonna hate it. So I typically just move on really quickly.
Just immediately.
Yeah.
All right. So I like that actually. So if you have an idea and it's not working, like it's okay, right? Like it's okay to move on.
Yeah. There's more. There's plenty.
Jeff, Ego, Karl, thank you for this conversation. So, I mean, amazing speakers. We're gonna exit the stage, but right after this, earlier this year, Jeff and I met downtown at his new store, 21 Mercer. It's a great profile on Jeff. It's about 10 minutes long. I urge you to stay here and to watch it. I'm biased, but I think it's pretty good. All right, thanks everybody.
I think it sucks.
Mark.